Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Support comes from the University of Alaska College Savings Plan, helping you and your child save for college every step of the way, from diapers to diploma. More information at uacollegesavings.com.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks once again for joining us today for this Monday's 26th of September 2016 edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Up on the first graphic here, as usual, the times now. Nothing's changed here for at least a week now. 5:30 p.m. That started last Monday there in KUAC up in the interior around Fairbanks 9.4, APB 5:30, and 360 North 7:30 p.m. And for the following morning at 5 a.m., you can pick the show up on Alaska Public Media, and it's also uploaded on the internet, YouTube, by 8 p.m. each evening. Moving on to the warning and advisory map, we've got some red here that signifies warning conditions. Eastern Norton Sound there, that is a coastal flood warning out that kicks into effect Tuesday night and continues through Wednesday morning, at least there. And that's for building C's with the incoming storm. They'll be moving into the area there. And again, actually Wednesday and Wednesday night is the time period that this is in effect. And look for storm surge about 4 to 7 feet above the normal tide in this area throughout that time period. Otherwise, Yukon Delta coast, high surf advisory, same thing here for the north side of the Seward Peninsula and along the northwest coast, high surf advisory there for the same storm coming in, increasing in the winds there, and of course the surf and waves building. On to the satellite imagery. Today we have one system here, started out over the southeast Bering early this morning, late last night, moving across the peninsula today with the rain, changing to showers across here this afternoon, and some just clouds here into Kodiak Island with the rain-producing clouds passing it by to the south, a break over the Gulf of Alaska, another enhanced area of showers here approaching the southeast coast. This front having brought the heavy rain last evening here to the southern panhandle. It's pushed off to the east enough. Showers diminished a little bit, continue through the day here, but diminished somewhat before they'll pick up again as this moves in tonight. Clouds over the southeast interior, sunshine here, Cook Inlet, Susitna Valley, Prince William Sound actually back to the west, and then up to the north. Trough coming eastward here and dragging across eastern Norton Sound with light precipitation, getting a little more continuous with just a narrow band of some light snow there from the about Indian Mountain up across Bettles, on up the Brooks Range to the eastern Arctic coast. And out to the west, not much going on. You can see the outer edge of the next storm that's going to be coming across the Russian Far East and pushing into the Bering Sea, and that's the one that's going to increase the wind significantly here over the northern Bering Sea and kick in those high surf advisories and coastal flood warnings Wednesday and Wednesday night. On the chart today, though, there's that trough I spoke of up here with some light snow. Looked like Indian Mountain picked up a couple inches as that passed by, and that extended out to the eastern Arctic coast. Just some showers to the south there. Galena picked up some showers, possibly over toward the Nulato Hills there, but nothing very significant. That followed by high pressure. It's built in over the St. Lawrence Island area in Bering Strait. Otherwise, sunshine broke out today, south central Alaska, as I mentioned, up in the Susitna Valley, back across the Kuskokwim, and also up here over the east central interior areas. But looks like a lot of clouds hanging around the Copper River Basin, and then showers here southeast coast, and then with this trough, actually some isolated thunderstorms picking up some lightning strikes just off the coast there where that trough axis is moving in actually right now and overnight tonight. This system continuing southeast will take a turn to the east here eventually and then try to recurve back to the northeast later on. But for tonight, the position moves to tonight right there. So drying out here for the Alaska Peninsula, showers ending. Also those gusty winds coming down as well that were gusting anywhere from 25 to as high as 45 miles an hour western Alaska Peninsula to the eastern Aleutians today. As that low center dropped down there, winds diminished over the Pribilofs, becoming light tonight and getting a little more westerly. Pretty fair over the interior, just some leftover scattered to isolated shower activity there in the shaded areas right up to that trough. They're kind of an upper level trough here. Pretty weak though, but just gradually edging its way eastward up there. And then more showers here for the southeast coast and clearing there for Kodiak Island. Moving on to the Tuesday forecast, you can see the first in a series of troughs here approaches the panhandle again from this low. So look for the showers or rain to increase during the afternoon on Tuesday. They don't actually end altogether over the inland areas there. Mostly partly cloudy, I'll say, for the southeast interior with a few isolated showers near the mountainous terrain. Sunshine to sit in the valley southward across the Kenai Peninsula down to Kodiak Island with pretty light wind conditions and not bad here under the high center over the interior there with partly to mostly cloudy skies, staying mostly cloudy with some isolated snow showers up over the northeast, but back toward the Koyukuk Valley and the central north slope areas to the west looking really good with some clearing. And then next storm coming in, still approaching here St. Lawrence Island, so look for gale force winds here, 40 knots, St. Matthew Island area, 35 knots right up to the Bering Strait, those winds coming up, and the rain here spreading over St. Lawrence Island. Southwest flow here across the Bering Sea, that's going to bring a lot of moisture and clouds, probably some light precipitation here to the southwest areas. Nothing very significant at all, but that'll be moving in probably early on Tuesday, but to the south, pretty good for the Alaska Peninsula, partly to mostly sunny conditions there with light winds. And that pattern extends all the way out to Atka and Adak. Temperatures, or no, for Tuesday, that system pushes eastward here, upper level high kind of flattens out. Still pretty strong down here to the south, so that flow around that will drive that front right inland, and warmer conditions as well. So that's all going to be rain right up to the Brooks Range, and then maybe mixed up there in the eastern Arctic coast, north slope areas there, followed by some rain and snow showers. But south of the mountains, showers from Kotzebue Sound, Noatak Valley, all the way down to the Yukon Delta, kind of getting pretty scattered there, drying out over St. Lawrence Island, southwest winds, maybe some clearing. And that front, just a weak trailing edge coming down across the Pribilof Islands for maybe a chance of some light moisture Wednesday evening as that drops southward. And pretty good conditions, sunshine here, Kodiak Island, right up into the Copper River Basin, clear skies, a few more clouds north of the mountains there over the 40-mile country, and then showers, scattered showers. Not too bad though, could be some clearing. In fact, showers will be diminishing here throughout the afternoon, be a little more numerous in the morning, but as this system pulls eastward, flow becomes more easterly, and that's going to tend to shut the showers off or cause them to diminish. So kind of improving there with the higher pressure to the north there, giving that offshore flow. But look for the clouds to increase here across Cook Inlet, and it looks like for Wednesday night and Thursday, this front kind of dies along the Alaska Range, or at least at this point in time, the precipitation holds up there and then kind of scoots by north of the mountains. And then after that passes by, pretty good building of high pressure comes in for later in the week. And temperatures across the Panhandle today, mostly in the upper 40s north to lower 50s south, really not much of a contrast. 49 at Skagway to 52 at AKwx, same thing at Sitka, 51 here at Cordova, right around 50 for Valdez, 46 Gulkana, McCarthy though up to 56 degrees, upper 40s Cook Inlet, but Seward at 54, 46 at Talkeetna, and up in the Tanana Valley, upper 30s to lower 40s there, 38 Tanana, 42 in Fairbanks, and a 41 at Fort Yukon, but much cooler back to the west there. Bettles 34 degrees where that trough is coming eastward, 28 at Arctic Village. Lower 30s all across the North Slope and Arctic coast to mid-30s here over the northwest, but Nome did push up to 42 this afternoon. Same thing at Unalakleet. McGrath just 33 degrees, but 50 at Bethel, lower 50s down along the southwest coast. Same thing for the Pribilof temperature-wise, and actually lower 50s here. Alaska Peninsula King Salmon down across Unalaska, all the way out to Shemya. And lows for tonight, teens, North Slope into the Brooks Range, otherwise mid-20s. South of the mountains, Koyukuk Valley to the Yukon Flats, looks like mid-20s for the lows. 20s southward in the Copper River Basin, lows in the 20s to mid-30s here for south central Alaska and the valleys, but milder upper to mid to upper 30s along the southwest coast, and upper 30s to mid-40s for the Panhandle. As far as highs go for tomorrow, 50s here for the Bristol Bay Area and the Alaska Peninsula. Look for some mid-50s to show up in the Susitna Valley, areas of the Kenai Peninsula, and lower to mid-50s here for the southeast coast. 20s to lower 30s for the areas north of the Brooks Range. And for flying weather tomorrow morning, pretty good, just a swath of marginal conditions with that slow upper level trough, slow moving upper level trough right through this area. Otherwise VFR, Gulf of Alaska, Southern Alaska, and the Panhandle. And some of this catching Kodiak Island, leftover moisture from that thing passing by today to the south. And out west, big area of VFR out here, all the way out to Amchitka Island, but marginal VFR, Northern Bering Sea, spreading up into St. Lawrence Island. And then for tomorrow afternoon, that increases here with the IFR, now St. Lawrence Island, right up through the Bering Strait, coming eastward to the western Seward Peninsula areas, but really not making much progress down here to the south, and it stays VFR, Norton Sound and the Yukon Delta coast through tomorrow afternoon, VFR through all of the interior areas, and looks like marginal VFR hugging the coastline here from Yakutat all the way down to just about Dixon Entrance. So moving on to the passes, Anaktuvik VFR, same forecast for Adigan. Lake Clark and Merrill, sea lanes visibility is unlimited throughout the day tomorrow, and as well as rainy, windy, and Isabel. For Mentasta, looks pretty good. Tanita, good VFR. Portage, VFR. Chilkoot and White, all VFR. For the freezing levels, colder air aloft, now definitely here 2,000 feet through the central interior at the surface to the north, and actually 2,000 feet now down across just about all of the southeast coast. A little warmer out here over the Bering Sea, especially with that next front coming in, but 4,000 to 6,000 feet out to the west. And for icing, again with the system coming eastward here, look for the icing threats to increase from west to east from the northern Bering Sea up to St. Lawrence Island area, and that'll eventually be moving eastward into the western interior tomorrow night and into Wednesday. And then along the southeast coast, mostly above about 5,000 feet, mixed icing there above, or yeah, mostly along the coast. And for the upper level wind flow chart, there's that upper level low now back here, actually back out here yesterday. We'll be into this position tomorrow afternoon. And so southwest flow at about 90 knots across the Queen Charlotte's, higher pressure back to the west, drier northwest flow, and then this system driving eastward here into the northern Bering Sea. For the 9,000 foot winds, pretty light out of the southeast here for the Panhandle, really light for the Gulf of Alaska, into the interior under a general area high pressure. North of the ridge though, westerlies 10 to 15 knots, increase significantly back out to the west. We're looking at 20 to 35 knots, as high as 50 knots coming up through the Bering Strait, 35 knots blowing right across Kivalina. 3,000 foot winds here, same pattern, high pressure, light winds, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, right up in across all of southern Alaska. Very light winds, southeast maybe up to 10 knots for the Panhandle, and that light wind condition right up to the eastern Arctic coast, and then 25 to 35 knots there in the Chukchi Sea, actually stronger back out here to the west, pick up to 40 knots from the southwest into the Bering Sea. That all staying north of the Aleutians here, where you just see southwesterlies at 10 knots, picking up to about 25 knots around Adak and Atka, and the Pribilofs up to Nunivak Island, real light here for the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians. So as far as turbulence goes, It'd be moderate chop coming eastward, St. Matthew Island through the Bering Strait and the Chukchi Sea below about 5,000 feet, and that affecting Kimberley up to possibly Point Ley late in the day, and turbulence increasing as the winds increase here across the southwest interior, but really smooth everywhere else across the state. And after hangar flying, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor. On behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, thank you to Alaska Public Media for sponsoring this program. We are glad you could join us this evening, where we are happy to have Mike Hodges back on our program. He's been telling us about his job with the National Transportation Safety Board, where he's an aviation accident investigator. Welcome back, Mike.
Thanks, Mary.
On our last show, we talked about how you got started in aviation and a little bit about your background. Leading up to your job, can you tell us how you got interested in working with the National Transportation Safety Board?
Sure. I got my start in accident investigation when I was in the military, and I really enjoyed doing that. And as we know, the NTSB is the ones that do accident investigation here in the civilian world. And so that kind of was something I've always had my eye open on, and I've always been checking for job postings, and one came open, I applied for it, and the rest is history.
Do you see similarities between the types of accidents that you investigated in the military and the types of accidents you see in the civilian world?
The ones I did in the military were a lot of, I guess, more or less like low-level kind of known circumstances, easier things.
Sure.
Whereas the ones I'm doing here with the NTSB are a lot more complex, involve fatalities, serious injuries. So it's a little different type of scope, a little more work, but definitely enjoy the investigative work on both sides of the house, though.
It could be more of a challenge here because you've got so many more unknowns.
Definitely, different types of makes and models of airplanes and personnel and lots of different variables involved with this side of the work.
Exactly. So you're a helicopter guy.
Correct.
Do you also investigate fixed wing accidents?
I do, yep. I've done the whole spectrum since I've been here. I've done airplanes, helicopters, gliders, balloons, waist shift control, airplanes, kind of the whole spectrum since I've been here.
Okay. Do you get to choose or get called on for your expertise with helicopters, or you investigate whatever comes up when you're on call?
A little bit of both, yeah. I do whatever's on call, but also if assistance is needed with other investigations or other projects, we all help each other and cross-reference and use our expertise and knowledge.
Okay. Going back to your experience both with the NTSB and with your life in the military, was there one best experience that helped prepare you for this job, or one thing from your background as an aviator or in school?
I think one of the biggest key to doing this job successfully is project management and having project management skills to, look over all these resources and personnel and bring them together. And, accident investigation is kind of like putting the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle together, and you got to kind of get pieces from here, get pieces from there, and bring everything together. And so project management, I think, is the best, trade, if you will, that I've had along the years that has helped me be successful so far.
That's good. I wouldn't have thought of that. You also are juggling multiple projects at once because you're not just dealing with one investigation at a time.
Correct, yeah. We, as investigators, have multiple accidents open at once, so it's a juggling act between different makes and models and locations and situations. So,
is there a favorite part of your job?
I really enjoy the problem solving. The taking a problem and looking at it and dissecting it and being very methodical in depth and looking at everything. And then I enjoy working with the people, of course. But the biggest thing I enjoy the most is the safety, the advancement of safety, if you will, and doing things like outreach and safety recommendations and safety alerts. And I think that kind of makes everything to come together and puts it out there for the public so they can use it.
Oh, good. The proactive part of it.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Do you have any one piece of advice for somebody who's looking for a job someday with the NTSB, whether they're already a professional pilot or if they're still in school or just learning to fly. Would you have any career advice?
Sure. I think the best thing would be to be that, that well-rounded candidate with having a couple years of experience, whether you're turning wrenches or wiggling sticks, you know, having your A&P license, your commercial pilot license, having a degree, and kind of having all those things together would make you a well-rounded candidate, in my opinion.
Okay, so get as much aviation experience as you can and stick with school.
And definitely, and of course, you know, having those good interpersonal skills and being a team player and being able to communicate effectively with folks.
Doesn't hurt either. Thank you, Mike. It's been a pleasure having you on our show, and we look forward to having you back next time to talk about some of your proactive activities in aviation safety.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you've enjoyed our program, and we appreciate your support. We appreciate you tuning in to Hangar Flying. Until next time, fly safely.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis looks like this, with a little bit farther east and than it was earlier on, like last week here, with some of the lighter ice. And forecast here, when the winds be kicking out of the south here, trend, it looks like it'll be for this to eventually maybe pull off the coast and get to the north a little bit there. Anyway, moving on to marine forecasts here for the Panhandle, southeast 15 to 20 for the inside waters there, a little more southerly up in northern Lynn Canal, and southeast 15 knots for the central coast, with lighter conditions on both ends, with seas down to 6 to 8 feet. And then for Wednesday, back to the small craft advisories here, 25 knots from the east-southeast, and seas at about 8 feet. East 20 for the central coast, and then north 15 on the extreme north coast up there, northern Lynn Canal, down across Stevens Passage, north as well at 15 knots, and then Clarence Strait picking up 20 knots generally out of the east. For Prince William Sound, light winds tomorrow, light northerlies here for Cook Inlet, with seas just 2 feet, and then northwest 20 blowing out of Kamishak Bay, turns northerly at 20 knots across the Barren Islands, on down the east side of Kodiak Island, seas 5 to 6 feet, and the North Gulf Coast east-northeasterlies at light east-northeasterlies with 4-foot seas. And then for Wednesday, light variable wind conditions, northern Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound. Swing around to the west-northwest, 15 to 20 knots here for the North Gulf Coast, west 20 knots for the Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay, Shelikof Strait here, east side of Kodiak, 15 knots out of the west, southwest 15 for southern Cook Inlet. And Bristol Bay, light westerlies tomorrow, southwest 15 here on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. Pacific side, northwesterlies, 15 to 20 knots, seas out there running roughly around 7 feet. And for the Wednesday outlook, winds stay pretty light here on the Pacific side of the peninsula, Cape Sarachev all the way up to Sitkinak at 10 knots with 4-foot seas. 15 knots southwesterlies here on the north side of the peninsula, pick up to about 20 knots as you get into Bristol Bay with 5 to 7-foot seas. And for the eastern Aleutians tomorrow, southwest 15 knots, and then it becomes more southerly, picks up to 25 knots here across the central Aleutians, and then behind the front, dropping off a little bit there, still hanging at 20 knots from the southwest, but becoming more westerly out toward Chimay and Attu with 8 to 9-foot seas. And then for Wednesday, those pick up out here in the far west, back to small crafts there with those southerly winds at 25. Southeast winds 20 to 25 here coming across the central Aleutians, heading in toward the eastern areas, but they drop off to about 15 to 20 out of the south. Seas 6 to 8 feet, up to 10 feet here on the south side of the central Aleutians. And along the southwest coast, south of the island there, southwest at 20 knots, blowing into Kuskokwim Bay, 6-foot seas, south 25, increased to 30 knots there for St. Lawrence Island, 35-knot winds along St. Matthew Island, looking at 40 knots to the west, southwest 25 for the Pribilofs. And then for Wednesday, southwest 35 knots, St. Lawrence Island, seas up to 14 feet, southwest at 30 for the southwest coast there, but dropping off to 20 knots south of Nunivak Island, and the Pribilofs coming down to about 20 knots with those seas hanging in at about 10 feet. For the Arctic coast there, on the east side where that trough is kind of hung up here, east of the trough, you're going to see southerlies at 20 knots back to the west, or the west of the trough axis, westerlies at 20, coming down to about 15. Out of the southwest or the central coast, and then small craft advisories here from the western coast all the way down to the Bering Strait, with those seas running 7 to 9 feet. And the outlook for Wednesday, 30-knot winds here from the western coast all the way down to Wales, about 30 knots with 9 to 11-foot seas, and southerlies 25 knots to the central coast, that working eastward as well, and southeast at about 20 as you go over toward Demarcation Point. And for tonight, again, pretty nice over the interior here. Any leftover showers will be over if they haven't ended already, but kind of lingering here eastern North Gulf Coast, and showery conditions for the southeast coast. Not bad, clearing out rain and showers, any diminishing winds Alaska Peninsula, and a few isolated snow showers up to the north and northeast. And then we're watching the next system here over the Russian Far East, the front pushing into the western Bering tonight. That brings those winds up again, gales in the northern Bering Sea, and rain spreads in across St. Lawrence Island. And even the clouds will increase, and maybe some scattered light showers developing over the southwest interior back to the southern Seward Peninsula. Inland areas, light winds, high pressure, isolated showers, that weak upper trough to the northeast. Otherwise, pretty good conditions. Copper River Basin, mostly cloudy scattered showers to the Panhandle, sunshine, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, all the way up to Adak and Atka. And then for Wednesday, pushes eastward, westerly winds, kick those seas up for the high surf advisories and warnings there for eastern Norton Sound.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Thanks for your continued support of Alaska Public Media. I'm Kristen Hall, Director of Member Engagement. Without our members, there'd be no Frontline, Nature, Nova, or Arthur. It's your support that makes all the difference. On behalf of all of us here at Alaska Public Media, thanks to all of our members for choosing to invest in great programming.